Hello, my name is Jim McGillivray and this is the Pipe Box, your source for all things piping. If you find this video useful, please give it a like and please subscribe to this YouTube channel to be informed of more videos just like this. We're going to go over a tune today, and you can print the music out for this tune by going back to the description of this video on my YouTube channel. You'll see a link to a PDF there. Today I would like to do with you a war tune. There have been many war tunes over the past 2 centuries, but very few equal the melodic quality of this one. The tune is called The Battle of the Somme, and it was presumably written by the great composer William Lawrie. I say presumably because we haven't exactly found a piece of manuscript paper with William Lawrie's signature on it. The early music books, such as the Scots Guards book, Volume 1, the Seaforth Highlanders book, which was published in the 30s, and Robert Reid's Piper's Delight, which was also published in the 30s, and other books, do not list a composer for this tune. It was not until into the 1980s that William Lawrie's name began to be associated with this tune as its composer, which may or may not be true. William Lawrie lived from 1881 to 1916. He died at age 35 after becoming ill in the trenches of the Somme in 1916. His output of tunes is powerful, but not prolific. Tunes like The Pap of Glencoe, John MacDonald of Glencoe, Inverary Castle, Captain Carswell, and more. He was a very successful competitor. He won both gold medals, and he also won the Clasp at Inverness. Serving under him in the 8th Argyll's Regiment during the war was Pipe Major John McClellan of Dunoon, one of our greatest composers. And one has to wonder at the connection between John McClellan of Dunoon and William Lawrie's Battle of the Somme. Perhaps John McClellan saved the tune from loss. Perhaps he gave it its title. Maybe we'll never know. Anyway, let's have a quick look at the whole score. The Battle of the Somme was fought between July and November of 1916 along the Upper Somme River in France. It's gone on record as one of the deadliest battles in human history. William Lawrie's tune commemorating it is in 9/8 time, and it's full of feeling. 9/8s were rare in these days, so William Lawrie was being an innovator in his way. 9/8 time is essentially 6/8 time with an extra beat in each bar. So instead of 6/8 notes in a bar, we will get 9. We'll get 3 main beats in a bar instead of just 2. Any of the rules I've discussed about 6/8 time in other videos will apply here, and we will go over these. This is an intermediate level tune, and probably the hardest piece of technique in the tune is either the tockum in the ending or the grip from low A to F just before the ending. We will go over these. So that's a bit of history on our tune. Let's now hear the whole of the Battle of the Somme played on a Blair digital chanter. That was William Lawrie's great 9/8 march, The Battle of the Somme, played on a Blair digital chanter. Let's go through the tune part by part. Almost everything we need to know in this tune appears in the first bar. We start off with an F 16th note, a short F. We're going to run across a few of these short notes that are on the beat. And it's really important that the short notes be on the beat and not be ahead of it. So when we start the Battle of the Somme, make sure your G grace note finger hits the chanter on that F when your foot hits the floor. Some pipers will put the second note, the long note, the high A, on the beat rather than the short F. Put the short F on the beat. Avoid this. F on the beat. Okay? In the middle of the bar, we have a D quarter note dotted. Our second rule in 6/8 and 9/8 is whenever you hit a quarter note or a dotted quarter note, you extend it as long as you possibly can. I'll remind you of this. Right after that dotted quarter note is a dotted 8th note, and here is our third rule of 6/8 and 9/8 playing. Whenever you see a dotted 8th note, you hold it without fail. They appear frequently throughout 6/8 and 9/8, and it's easy to play away and kind of neglect one or two. It's really important that you be consistent with those dotted 8th notes and point every single one. So the first bar might sound like this. The second bar begins with a dotted 8th note, and again we're going to hold it as long as we can, and the D 16th note after it is going to be very short. The second bar ends with 2 dotted quarter notes, and again you're going to bring these out as long as you can. So let's hear the first 2 bars. Nine-eighths and 6/8 have a nice lilt to them. And your job is to hold the long notes so that 6/8 or 9/8 rhythm comes out clearly. In bar 4, in line 1, we have another short F, which will hit on the beat, and a dotted quarter note and a quarter note. Again, you're going to extend these as long as you can. In bar 3, let's go back to bar 3. I want to spend a little bit of time on the tockum that starts bar 3. Again, pipers will be tempted to put the long note on the beat rather than the short note. You need to sit on the low A before that short B and make sure your foot hits the floor when your G grace note hits the chanter. So, for example, let's play bar 2 and bar 3. I want you to hear how much I hesitate before that tockum into bar 3. You may have to work a bit on your tockums to execute that tockum crisply, clearly, and on the beat. We're going to run into it again as soon as we hit the ending. In line 2, bars 1, 2, and 3 are the same as above. In bar 3 of line 2, we have our tockum again, this time in the ending. So that tockum is going to appear several times in the tune, and you want to make sure that you can play it crisply and on the beat. At the end of bar 3 in line 2, we have a grip. that goes from low A up to F. That will be tricky for some people, and the key here is the end of the grip. When you hit the end of the grip, you want your low A, E, and F fingers to all leave the chanter at the same time. That's one little piece of technique some folks might have a little bit of trouble with. And then the last bar begins with a dotted eighth note, which we're going to hold out. You'll notice that there is a second ending to the first part. It's not really something you have to think too much about. There's no real difference in the way you play those two bars, except that they account for the fact that there is a lead-in note to the first part and no lead-in note to the second part. So we need to write a second ending to account for that missing eighth note when we start the second part. Okay, that is the whole first part. Let's hear the first part played on the practice chanter. The second part continues the patterns we've seen in the first part, beginning with a dotted eighth note that you're going to hold, and the bar concluding with dotted quarter notes that you're going to draw out as long as you can. In bar 2, we begin with another dotted eighth note that you're going to hold as long as you can. In the middle of the bar, we have another short F that's on the beat. This is the first time we've seen a short note on a beat in the middle of a bar. The same rule applies. You're going to hit that short note squarely on the beat and not ahead of it. So let's hear the first two bars. Okay, nice and measured and waiting for the beat on all beats. Bar 3 begins with a dotted eighth note that we're going to hold. Bar 4, this appears in other places in the tune, but I wanted to leave it to address it here. Here we have a dotted eighth note in bar 4 that's in the middle of a group of 3, not at the beginning, but our same commandment applies. It's a dotted eighth note and we are going to hold it. So bars 3 and 4. Okay. Line 2 has nothing new in it, so that's pretty much everything we need to know in the second part. Let's hear the second part played in the practice chanter. I played this tune earlier on the Blair digital chanter at 78 beats per minute. Bands might play the tune a little more quickly, soloists might play it a little more slowly. If you are just learning the tune, I suggest you play it as slowly as you need to in order to play the technique well. All too often I see pipers learning tunes, playing them too quickly, and they end up with muddy and inaccurate technique that's firmly ingrained in their musical brain. Another issue around learning tunes. Most of us, myself included, have to play a tune dozens of times in order to get it memorized. I find pipers, as they play the tune over and over and over again, 10, 20, 30, 40 times, it gets a little bit lazy, it gets a little bit round, it's not played with great expression, it's maybe played a little too quickly. That's okay. But once you have the tune memorized and you start to play it, you need to leave that behind. You need to get your pointing back, you need to get your tempo right, all your technique crisp, play the tune musically as well as you can, which perhaps you weren't doing as you were learning the tune. Make sure you make that transition from learning to performance. And a good way to start is with some of the suggestions that I have made here in this video. Once you have the pointing and the technique off so that you can play them both comfortably, that's when you can start to put some feeling into the tune. And there is a lot of feeling in this tune. Okay, that's it for Willie Lawrie's great Battle of the Somme, perhaps our greatest 9/8 march. For this week, from me, Jim McGillivray at the Pipe Box, good piping.